According to a 1992 biography, before she was married to Ronald, Nancy Reagan was known around Hollywood for giving the best head. She was reportedly known as Just Say Yes Nancy and was very popular on the MGM lot for her glucking abilities. Napoleon Bonaparte apparently loved Stinky Beaver. On several occasions, he wrote to his lover instructing her not to wash up before he returned to her. The wife of U.S. President Benjamin Harrison died while he was in office in 1892. 4 years later, Harrison married his dead wife's much younger niece and had a daughter with her. His original adult children, who were around 40 years old at the time, were so disgusted by their father marrying their cousin that they didn't attend the wedding. Legendary artist Jackson Pollock died in a drunken car crash in 1956, along with his passenger Edith Metzger. Legend has it that Edith was found with Pollock's bitten-off wiener in her mouth. In the late 1600s, a serial spanker used to terrorize the streets of London with his spanking tactics. Nicknamed Whipping Tom, the man would assault unaccompanied women by lifting their dresses and spanking their butts while yelling, "Spanko!" Vigilantes dressed as women started patrolling areas where he was known to strike. At least 70 attacks were carried out before Thomas Wallace was captured and confessed to the spankings. When Blackbeard blockaded Charleston Harbor in 1718, he wasn't seeking gold but instead demanded mercury. Up until the 20th century, it was widely believed that injecting mercury into the urethra was a cure for syphilis. After a long stay in the brothels of Barbados, most of the men in Blackbeard's fleet were infested with STDs. Thus, Blackbeard captured Charleston Harbor to try and make his male parts feel better. The first ever reliable pregnancy test involved injecting a woman's urine into the skin of a female African clawed frog. If the woman was pregnant, the frog would lay eggs within a few hours. William the Conqueror smashed his nuts so hard on his horse's saddle that it gave him an awful infection which he died from a few weeks later. Priests later tried to force his body into a stone coffin that was far too small, causing his corpse to effectively explode. In the 19th century, doctors would perform pelvic massages to treat hysteria in women. Essentially, women would be finger-banged until they reached hysterical paroxysm, aka climax. But these treatments were often time-consuming and gave many doctors carpal tunnel, thus the vibrator was born. In 1999, police were called to Matthew McConaughey's Texas home after his neighbor reported loud music and disturbances. When they arrived, ossifers found the actor playing the bongos while blazed out of his skull and completely naked. He was arrested for possession of marijuana. Many historians believe that the crotch part of medieval armor was enlarged not to make the knight's junk look bigger, but to prevent the pain caused by syphilis when their genitals rubbed against the metal. During the Cold War, the CIA highly considered using condoms as a weapon against Russia. They wanted to drop extra-large condoms that were labeled small on Soviet territory to lower their morale, but the plan was eventually scrapped. King Philip V of Spain and his court were known to play a game that translated to the imperturbable. A bunch of naked men would sit around a table covered by a cloth, while a lady underneath the table would put her mouth around one of their willies. The rest of the players would have to guess who was receiving it, and if their guess was correct, the player who was getting socked would have to leave the game. The game was won by the player who could climax without any of the other players noticing. Apparently, this game was very popular among French nobility in the 18th century. A 6-year-old boy from Germany who loves motorcycles was diagnosed with cancer. So his family posted online asking if anyone could ride their motorcycles down their street to help cheer him up. They would have been happy if only 30 or 40 people showed up, but the post went viral and over 15,000 bikers ended up coming. Brazilian mother Silvia Greco won FIFA's Best Fan Award in 2009 after she was seen in the crowd explaining the entire match to her son that was blind. A Brazilian cow that managed to escape being slaughtered was later found at a local water park riding the slides and lounging in the pool. The cow's owner later decided to spare the cow's life and even ended up naming it Slide. Bob Marley gave his friend Vincent Tata Ford official credit for the lyrics to the song No Woman, No Cry. Ford ran a soup kitchen in the Jamaican ghetto where Marley grew up, so Bob gave him credit for writing the song to give him royalty payments that would keep the soup kitchen open. After Bax the dog went blind, his friend Buttons the goose became his eyes by hanging onto him and honking to direct him. An Arab-American man from California named Mohammed Bazik is a foster parent who only takes in orphan children who are terminally ill. He's fostered more than 80 children over 20 years and has continued this practice even after his wife passed away in 2015. When Mr. Rogers was told that his limo driver would have to wait outside for 2 hours while Rogers was at a PBS meeting, he told the driver to come join. On the way back to the airport, they passed the driver's home, and Rogers asked if they could stop to meet his family. Rogers kept in touch with the driver for the rest of his life. After TV star Jack Benny died in 1974, his widow Mary received a red rose in the mail. After several days of finding a new rose every day, she called to find out who was sending them. The florist told her that Jack had arranged for a rose to be sent to her every day until she died. While filming The Hangover, actor Ken Jeong, aka Leslie Chow, included several inside jokes to cheer up his wife who was battling cancer at the time. In 2019, a young boy with a rare form of leukemia urgently needed a stem cell transplant, so his parents started a campaign in hopes of finding someone in the area whose stem cells would match. The campaign quickly went viral, as 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the pouring rain to donate their stem cells. They eventually found a match, and the boy has been cancer-free ever since. Robin Williams had a clause in his acting contract that required at least 10 homeless people to be hired in every movie he acted in. Throughout his career, he helped over 1,500 homeless people get jobs. This is a photo of 6-year-old John Oliver receiving a standing ovation at his school after finishing his last cancer treatment and beating leukemia. During World War II, a German pilot spotted an American pilot's crippled plane in the sky. He noticed that the gunner was dead, the crew was injured, and that they didn't pose any threat. So instead of destroying the plane, he led it to safety and spared the men's lives. 40 years later, the two pilots reunited and became fishing buddies. In 2016, little Anaya Ellick beat 50 kids from across America in a national handwriting competition. What made this so impressive was that Anaya was born without hands but learned to write using her forearms. A gay man from Italy named Luca Trapanese adopted a baby girl with Down syndrome after more than 20 families rejected her. Being a single gay man, he was told by social services that he would only be given a child with an illness or disability. He was quoted saying, "When I first held her in my arms, I was overcome with joy and felt that she was my daughter right away." In 1993, Canadian lawyer Gary Hoy claimed to a group of students that the windows in his building were unbreakable. To prove this, he threw himself at the window at full force. While the glass didn't break, the frame popped out and Gary fell 24 stories to his death. In cases of CP, someone has to actually watch the video from beginning to end so that they can testify about it in court. After his mother died in 2013, Arizona man Jim Stauffer donated her body for scientific research. He later found out that her corpse was sold to the US military for $6,000 and blown up at a bomb testing site. After being diagnosed with polio at age 3, Diane Odell spent nearly 60 years in a 750-pound iron lung. She only died when a power outage shut down the machine that had been keeping her alive for decades. These were just some of the wedding rings that were removed from victims of Buchenwald concentration camp during the Holocaust. In Houston, Texas, a 19-year-old man named Rashad died while attempting to play Russian roulette in front of his friends. But he apparently didn't know how the game worked since he tried using a semi-automatic pistol instead of a revolver. In 1985, a 13-year-old Colombian girl named Omaira Sanchez was trapped up to her waist in volcanic mud flow. Knowing there was no way to free her, volunteers and rescuers did their best to comfort her. She died after 60 hours, and her photo became iconic. A grieving mother from Florida added a sandbox to the gravesite of her baby boy so that his big brother could play with him. In order to keep Genghis Khan's burial a secret, all 2,000 people who attended his funeral were executed. The executioners were then killed by members of his escort, who eventually took their own lives once they reached their destination. 800 years later, Genghis Khan's burial site still remains undiscovered to this day. The Grinch as a kid was played by an 18-year-old actor with dwarfism. Sadly, he died of heart failure just 2 years after the movie released. When a photojournalist took this picture of a little girl in Syria, she raised her arms in surrender because she thought the camera was a gun. In 2009, Moscow native Julia Popova was stabbed in the neck by a mugger, but she was in so much shock that she walked all the way home without even realizing that the knife was embedded in her neck, just millimeters from her spinal cord. She spent more than an hour with the blade inside of her before finally going to the hospital. In 1987, Kenneth Parks drove 12 miles to his mother-in-law's house and stabbed her to death in the middle of the night. But he didn't receive any jail time because Kenneth's lawyer was able to prove that he was sleepwalking the entire time. In 2012, a woman from New York donated her kidney to save the life of her boss. Her boss later fired her when she took too long to recover from the operation. Mohammed Bajay was an Iranian serial killer who raped and killed at least 40 young boys throughout the early 2000s. But his crimes only gained national attention because of the way in which he was executed. He was stoned by a mob, lashed 100 times, stabbed by the brother of one of his victims, and then hanged. Ever since she was a little girl, Jewel Shuping always wanted to be blind. So in 2006, she poured drain cleaner into her eyes and fully blinded herself. She says she's now happier than ever after fulfilling her lifelong wish. A Massachusetts man named Kenny Waters was wrongfully imprisoned for 18 years for murder. He was finally freed in 2001 after his high school dropout sister went to law school to prove his innocence. Sadly, he died 6 months after his release in a freak accident. After a mass shooting, you would expect complete silence at the crime scene. But police say one of the eeriest things is all the phones that ring when family members are trying to find out if their loved ones are okay. JFK's little sister Rosemary suffered from mood swings throughout her childhood. Fearing that she would end up embarrassing the Kennedy name, her father arranged for her to receive one of the first lobotomies when she was 23, and the surgery was completely botched. Doctors asked her to sing God Bless America while they sliced away at her brain with a tool that looked like a butter knife, and they stopped the surgery when she became incoherent. It left Rosemary completely incapacitated and unable to walk or speak until her death in 2005. As part of a 1974 art performance, artist Marina Abramovich told visitors she wouldn't move for 6 hours no matter what they did to her. She placed 72 items on a table and invited people to use them on her however they pleased with no punishment. There were objects for pleasure including a rose, perfume, and wine, as well as objects for pain including scissors, a whip, and a loaded gun. Visitors were gentle to begin with, but gradually got more aggressive as they became comfortable. Within 3 hours, all of her clothes had been completely cut off, and some people even started slicing her skin. She was sexually assaulted various times and had rose thorns stuck in her abdomen. One person even held the gun to her head until someone else took it away. Once the performance was over 6 hours later, the crowd scampered like mice to avoid an actual confrontation. Afterwards, Abramovich said, "If you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you." In 1894, a priest in Germany saved a little boy from drowning. That little boy was Adolf Hitler. Until as recently as 1999, doctors believed that babies couldn't feel pain and performed surgeries on them without anesthesia. 18-year-old John Thompson was home alone when he had both of his arms ripped off in a farming accident. But he still managed to get up and dial 911 with a pencil in his mouth. He miraculously survived and both of his arms were reattached. Co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, was denied after begging for whiskey on his deathbed and died 36 years sober. According to some ancient beliefs, your birthmarks show how you died in your past life. In 2010, a 17-year-old Chinese boy sold his kidney on the black market so that he could buy the new iPhone and iPad. 8 years later, the man's other kidney failed, and now he's bedridden for life. This massive pile of buffalo skulls shows how the population of American buffalo dropped from 30 million to 300 in just 50 years. Most were killed by the US military to deprive Native Americans of their primary food source. This famous mummy found in the ash of Pompeii appeared to be satisfying himself during his final moments in 79 AD. During a 1998 soccer match in the Republic of Congo, a lightning bolt struck one of the goal pitches. It killed all 11 members of the home team who were all wearing metal spikes, but the other team was left completely unscathed since they'd all been wearing rubber cleats. This is a photo of two engineers embracing for one final hug while standing on top of a wind turbine engulfed in flames. One of the men jumped to escape the fire while the other was burned alive while attempting to reach the staircase. Here's a photo of a little African girl at a zoo in Belgium in 1958. Visitors would often throw bananas and peanuts to her as if she was an animal. A hitchhiking robot that relied on the kindness of strangers to travel the world made it safely across Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands. But just 2 weeks into its American tour, Hitchbot was found in Philadelphia with its arms and head ripped off.